name's Alina Morgan and I'm 34. If you'd asked me a year ago to describe my life, I'd have said steady. A good job, a cozy apartment, and a man I believed was my future. I built everything on that belief. Turns out stability only matters to people who know what it costs to earn it. Jason never did. Jason and I met in college. He was the charming music major with wild hair and a guitar case, always slung over his shoulder. I was the marketing student who believed that passion needed structure, that talent needed a plan. Somehow we balanced each other, his chaos, my order. Or at least I thought we did. After graduation, he convinced me to move in with him downtown. Rent was high, but I didn't mind covering the bigger share. I'll pay you back when my gigs pick up, he'd say, flashing that confident grin. I believed him. I believed us. He called me his anchor. I called him my spark. And maybe that was the problem. Anchors sink when sparks set everything around them on fire. By the time we hit 5 years together, I had carved out a solid career as a marketing consultant. My days were long but fulfilling. Jason, on the other hand, still floated playing bars, chasing studio dreams, sometimes disappearing for creative retreats that sounded more like excuses than plans. Still, I supported him. When he struggled, I covered the bills, bought new strings for his guitar, even helped him design a personal brand website. We're a team, I used to say. Your success is our success. Looking back, that line makes me cringe, because I was the only one who believed it. It all started unraveling 6 months ago. Jason had been acting strange, distracted, secretive. He'd come home late from jam sessions and spend hours texting someone with a smirk that didn't belong to me. When I'd ask, he'd brush it off. Just Maya from work. She's helping me book new gigs. Maya, the free-spirited sound engineer with tattoos down her arm and a laugh that made everyone look. I met her once briefly at one of his shows. She'd clinked her beer against his and winked at me, like she already knew something I didn't. I ignored the unease, told myself I was overthinking. I'd always been the grounded one, logical, patient, loyal. A month before everything fell apart, Jason started hinting about wanting a break from routine. He said he felt suffocated by schedules, bills, and grown-up life. So trying to remind him what partnership meant, I planned a surprise. 2 tickets to a beach resort abroad. White sands, turquoise water, the kind of place we'd daydreamed about in our broke college days. The non-refundable deposit alone was $2,000, straight from my savings. When I showed him the booking, his face lit up for a moment. Then his smile flickered. That's amazing, he said, but his voice lacked warmth. I just don't know if I can take that much time off right now. Something in me twisted. It's not about time off, Jason. It's about us. He kissed my forehead, murmured, "We'll see." We never did. The night it happened was ordinary Tuesday, gray skies, the smell of rain on the city pavement. I came home early, arms full of takeout from his favorite Thai place. I set the table, lit a candle. Small gestures, small hope. He walked in at 8. The door creaked, his steps slow. "Hey," I said softly. "Thought we could have a nice dinner. How was rehearsal?" He didn't answer right away, dropped his bag. Then, eyes avoiding mine, he muttered, "Alina, we need to talk." I froze. That phrase every woman knows, it's the prelude to something awful. He sat across from me, elbows on knees, hands rubbing his temples. "I've been thinking a lot. About us. I love you, but..." He sighed, and the next words came like a dull blade. "We're better as friends." I blinked. Friends. My laugh cracked. What does that even mean? "You're amazing," he rushed on, "but I feel like we've grown apart. You're focused on work, security, all that. I need something different. Someone who..." He hesitated. What I demanded. "Who gets me?" he said finally. "Maya does." The candle flickered between us, its light trembling like my heartbeat. He talked fast then about chemistry, energy, spontaneity, about how Maya made him feel alive. I listened and numbed to the justifications tumbling from his mouth like a pre-written script. "So you've been cheating," I said quietly. He rolled his eyes. "It's not cheating if we've been drifting for months. You must have noticed. I've been dropping hints." "Hints," I whispered. "You mean those social posts about needing adventure and new energy? That was you, hinting." He shrugged, unapologetic. "Come on, Alina. You're too logical sometimes. You plan everything to death. With Maya, it's different. She's spontaneous." My chest tightened. All I could think about was the countless times I'd sacrificed to make him comfortable working overtime so he could chase gigs, turning down promotions that required travel because he wanted me nearby. And now I was too stable. So I asked, voice steadier than I felt, what happens now? I think we should end it, he said, standing, but stay friends. We've got history. No reason to be bitter. Friends, I repeated, tasting the word like poison. He gestured toward the table, oblivious. And about the trip, you already paid the deposit, right? We could still go as friends. I'll pay you back my half later. The audacity made my vision blur for a second. He dumped me, admitted to cheating, and still expected a vacation. Something inside me broke, but not the way he expected. It wasn't anger, it was silence. Cold, cleansing silence. If that's how you feel, I said, standing slowly, then, okay. He looked startled. That's it. No fight, no tears. I grabbed my keys. You wanted excitement, Jason. This is me choosing peace. He scoffed. See, that's what I mean. No passion. You're too calm. I paused at the doorway. No, Jason. I'm just done bleeding for someone who calls it art. I left him standing there, the candle still flickering, the food untouched. That night, I drove through rain-soaked streets until the city lights blurred. I crashed at Michelle's place, staring at her ceiling until dawn. My 5-year relationship had ended with a shrug and an invoice for a vacation I'd never take. But beneath the heartbreak, a strange calm settled. Not relief, something sharper. A whisper inside me saying, wait, just wait. Because sometimes life doesn't need you to seek revenge. It just needs you to get out of the way and let karma drive. The first week after the breakup was quiet. Too quiet. Not the kind of silence that heals, but the kind that hums in your ears, reminding you that everything familiar has been ripped away. I was staying at my best friend Michelle's apartment, curled up on her sofa, watching city lights flicker through the blinds. She didn't press for details, just placed a blanket over me and said softly, "You don't owe him your sadness forever." Her words didn't stick that night. Not yet. Grief takes time to translate. The first few mornings, I woke up half expecting Jason's text, "Good morning, Alina," or "Can you grab coffee on your way home?" Nothing came. Instead, I saw him online posting photos with Maya. Sunlit cafes, studio jam sessions, hashtags like #NewChapter, and #Ride with the Wild Ones. The same captions we once used. My hands would tighten around my phone, but I refused to comment, refused to react. He wanted attention, validation. I gave him silence. Still, every time I scrolled past one of those posts, my chest ached, like someone pressing a bruise that hadn't healed yet. One night, Michelle found me staring at my phone again. "Block him," she said firmly. I shook my head. "No, I want to see him crumble." She sighed. "Then you're still giving him space in your head. You're still his audience." She was right. The next morning, I blocked him on everything. Instagram, Facebook, even Spotify, where he'd uploaded those songs I once helped him promote. Deleting them felt like amputating memories. But once the silence hit, it was freeing. To fill the emptiness, I threw myself into work. Marketing was the one place where control still existed. Campaigns made sense. Numbers told the truth. People didn't. Colleagues noticed the shift. "Alina, you're on fire lately," my boss said during a Monday meeting. "What's changed?" I smiled faintly. Guess I stopped burning out for the wrong things. At lunch, I started eating alone in the park, journaling every emotion I couldn't say aloud. The pages filled fast: anger, confusion, guilt, disbelief. By the third week, I noticed something. The words were no longer about Jason. They were about me. How I'd lost my voice in that relationship. How I'd mistaken stability for love. How I'd traded my dreams for his. That realization stung harder than the breakup itself. By the fourth week, Jason's absence stopped feeling like an open wound and started feeling like empty space I could finally breathe in. I reconnected with things I'd let go of: photography, reading, late-night walks. I joined a weekend hiking group, something Jason always said was too boring. It wasn't. It was peaceful. I remember one moment clearly, standing on a ridge at sunrise, watching golden lights spill across the valley. For the first time in years, my mind was quiet. Not because I didn't care anymore, but because I finally cared about myself again. Then one afternoon, as I was leaving work, my phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. Jason. "Hey, Alina. Hope you're good. Just wondering, did you cancel the beach trip? Would be a shame to waste it. Maybe we could still go as friends." I stared at the message, the audacity of it almost surreal. No apology, no accountability, just entitlement wrapped in casual charm. I typed one word back, "no," then I blocked the number. For a brief second, guilt flickered. What if he was genuinely trying? What if I was being cold? But then I remembered the candlelight dinner, his smirk when he said, "Maya gets me." Guilt turned to clarity. 2 days later, another message came, this time from an unknown contact on Instagram. Maya and I are taking a break. She's complicated. Hope you're okay. Maybe we could talk sometime. It took me 10 seconds to delete it. 10 seconds to realize Jason hadn't changed. He'd just run out of people willing to tolerate him. Meanwhile, life began rewarding my peace. My team landed a big client, and my proposal was chosen as lead concept. I started running again each morning, tracing the same path I used to take to Jason's apartment. But now it led nowhere familiar, and that felt good. Michelle and I went out more movies, weekend brunches, laughter that didn't feel forced. At one point, she raised her glass and said, "You're glowing, Alina. It's like you finally remembered who you are." I smiled. Maybe I never forgot. I just stopped defending it. But just when I thought the storm had passed, the universe tested me. A voicemail popped up one evening. Jason's mother. "Alina, dear, it's Mrs. Reed. Jason told me what happened. You two were such a lovely couple. Don't throw away all those years over one mistake. Be the bigger person he's struggling. He needs someone to believe in him." I stood there in my kitchen, the message playing out in that tone mothers use when they want to sound kind, but are really commanding. Once I might have called back. This time I deleted it. Because believing in someone who breaks you isn't kindness, it's surrender. Days turned to weeks. The silence once heavy became a shield. Then one morning, Michelle looked up from her phone, eyes wide. "You're not going to like this," she said. "Jason just posted a story. Something about needing help with rent and missing real friends who cared." I didn't look, didn't want to, but deep down I smiled. Not out of spite, but peace. Because karma was finally warming up, and I didn't have to lift a single finger. By the time a month had passed, I had mastered the art of silence. No more stalking Jason's socials. No more wondering who he was with. No more dissecting his choices in my head at 2 a.m. He was simply gone. A chapter I'd decided not to reread. But people who live on attention don't go quietly. They always come back when the silence gets too loud. It started on a Thursday. I was finishing a client presentation when my phone buzzed an unfamiliar number again. "Jason. Hey, just checking in. Don't be mad. I miss talking to you. Maybe we can grab coffee. I'm sorry things got weird." Weird. That's what he called cheating now. I stared at the message, the word sorry, standing out like cheap glitter, shiny, but meaningless. I deleted it without replying. 10 minutes later, a new message popped up. "Also, about that vacation deposit, you still have the booking, right? I can send my share soon. Would be a waste not to use it." I laughed out loud. In the middle of the office. People glanced over and I muttered spam message before turning back to my screen. It wasn't spam, it was the universe testing my boundaries. And this time I passed. That weekend, Michelle and I went to brunch. Sunlight poured through the cafe windows, the scent of coffee and buttered croissants wrapping around us like comfort. "You look lighter," she said, stirring her latte. "So no, Jason updates." "Blocked again," I replied. "He's consistent, just not in the way he thinks." We laughed, but I could tell she was proud of me. Then, as if summoned by irony, my phone buzzed again. Voicemail, unknown number. I put it on speaker. "Alina, dear, it's Karen, Jason's mom. We're all worried about him. He's been down lately, lost his job at the bar. I know you two had something special. Don't throw it away over one little mistake. Be the bigger person." Michelle choked on her drink. Did she just say one little mistake? I pressed delete. Yep, the classic family guilt trip. Almost nostalgic. By week 6, Jason's facade had started to crumble publicly. Mutual friends, people I hadn't heard from since the breakup, started messaging me privately. "Hey, heard things aren't great with Jason. He's been couch surfing. Maya bailed on him. He's been ranting about fake people and betrayal on Facebook. It's kind of messy." Messy was putting it lightly. His posts were a mix of pity and arrogance quotes about outgrowing people who hold you back, sandwiched between song links no one liked. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who said I was too structured couldn't handle life without structure. Then came the unexpected. A text from Tina, one of Jason's closest friends, who'd always looked at me like I was the villain in his free spirit story. Tina. "Hey, Jason's not doing well. Maybe you could talk to him. He regrets a lot. He even mentioned the trip. Said you're being cold." I typed back before I could stop myself. Me cold or just done being a doormat? Blocked her immediately after sending it. Michelle laughed so hard she nearly spilled her mimosa. Finally, the savage era. But inside I wasn't angry, just tired. Tired of how easily people excused men like Jason. Tired of how responsibility always circled back to the woman who walked away. A week later, he showed up in person. I should have known it was coming, the text the family calls the pity posts. The escalation was textbook. It was a rainy Monday. I'd just wrapped a long meeting and was stepping out of the office lobby when I saw him, leaning by the glass doors, drenched from the drizzle, clutching a worn guitar case. His hair was longer, eyes dull, clothes rumpled. "Alina," he said softly, stepping forward. "Please, just a minute." I froze for half a second, then sighed. "Make it quick." He ran a hand through his hair, voice trembling. "I messed up, okay? Maya wasn't who I thought she was. She left. Took my stuff. I lost the bar gig. Everything's falling apart." I said nothing. He took that as an invitation to continue. "I know I hurt you," he went on, "but I'm sorry. I was stupid. I miss us. I miss how you kept me grounded. You were my calm, my home. My calm, my home. Funny how people remember your worth only after they've used it up." "Jason," I said evenly, "you didn't lose me. You threw me away. Big difference." He swallowed. "Can we talk just coffee? Or look, that vacation's still there, right? Maybe we could go together just to clear the air." I almost laughed. "You think a vacation will fix what you broke?" He stepped closer, eyes pleading. "I just need a break. Everything's a mess. You've always been the strong one. Please help me out just this once." There it was again, the entitlement, the soft manipulation, the assumption that my empathy was still his safety net. I met his gaze steadily. "You said you wanted adventure, Jason. This is what it looks like. You don't get to crawl back when the world stops clapping." His expression shifted, pleading, turned to bitterness. "You're really heartless now, huh? I thought you were better than this." "No," I said quietly. "I finally am better than this." Then I turned and walked away. He didn't follow. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe he finally understood that my silence wasn't punishment, it was closure. That night, as I poured myself tea by the window, I replayed the encounter in my mind. The desperation in his eyes, the rain soaking through his clothes. Once I would have pitied him. Now I just saw consequences. Because love isn't about rescuing someone from the storm they created. It's about walking out of the rain before it drowns you too. The next morning I expected to feel shaken, but I didn't. There was no heartbreak left, just a strange, quiet certainty that I had finally closed the last door. Still, Jason wasn't done. Men like him rarely accept endings they didn't orchestrate. By midweek, my office receptionist called up to say someone was asking for me in the lobby again. "Tall guy, guitar case, kinda desperate vibe," she said apologetically. I didn't even have to guess. "Tell him I'm in a meeting," I replied, heart steady. But when I stepped out for lunch later there, he was waiting by the elevators, looking worse than before. Rain-soaked again, like the universe had a sense of poetic justice. "Alina, please," he said, rushing forward. "Just 5 minutes." I sighed. "Jason, you're crossing a line showing up here. What do you want?" He rubbed the back of his neck, his voice wavering between pride and panic. "I don't have anyone else to talk to. Maya's gone. I tried to apologize, but you won't even give me a chance." "You already had 5 years' worth of chances," I replied. He flinched, then tried a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Okay, I deserve that, but maybe you could just help me get through this rough patch. Not as lovers, just as friends. You always said you cared." I tilted my head. Friends don't cheat. They don't lie either. He groaned softly. "Come on, Alina. You're really going to let one mistake erase everything we had?" "One mistake." My voice rose slightly. "Jason, you didn't trip into betrayal. You planned it. You lied, humiliated me, and then tried to use my savings for a vacation with your affair partner. That's not a mistake. That's character." For a moment, his mask slipped. His jaw clenched. "You think you're perfect, huh? Always in control. Always calm. That's why we didn't work. You don't know how to feel." "I did feel," I said quietly. "I just stopped showing it when you started taking advantage of it." He stared at me, in eyes flashing with frustration, and something darker resentment at losing the control he'd once had. "Fine," he snapped. "Forget it. But you'll regret this. I was the best thing that ever happened to you." I smiled, small, sad, and utterly free. "No, Jason. You were just the loudest lesson." I turned away and walked out of the glass doors without looking back. He called after me once more, voice cracking, "You'll miss me someday." The echo of it bounced off the marble walls and vanished. The truth was, I already had missed him. But not the real him. I'd missed the illusion I built around him, the version I wanted to believe existed. And illusions don't deserve tears. A few days later, word spread through our circle. Apparently after our encounter, Jason had gone drinking and started ranting in a bar about how fake women destroy good men. Someone filmed it. It got around. The comments were brutal. Even his friends stopped defending him. Tina, the one who used to lecture me about being too cold, sent a short message. You were right about him. Sorry I didn't see it sooner. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Meanwhile, my own life quietly bloomed. Work recognized my recent project as the best performing campaign of the quarter. My boss pulled me aside, saying, "You've changed. More focus, more fire. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Funny thing, peace looks like fire to people who are used to chaos. Then, one Friday night, as I was leaving the office, my phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. Jason's voice, raw, this time shaky. "Alina, please. I don't know who else to call. Maya's gone for good. I can't pay rent. I'm trying to sell my guitar. I need help. I'm sorry." "Okay. You were right about everything. Please just talk to me." I stood there under the fluorescent lights of the empty lobby phone pressed to my ear. A part of me wanted to feel sorry for him. The old me would have rushed in with empathy, tried to fix things. But that part of me was gone, burned away by his betrayal, replaced by quiet self-respect. So I didn't delete the voicemail right away. I kept it for perspective, for those nights when loneliness might whisper lies, trying to convince me that comfort is worth compromise. Because that message was proof that I had made the right choice. 2 weeks later, Karma delivered her encore. Michelle sent me a screenshot. Jason had posted a desperate GoFundMe link online, trying to get back on my feet. Tough year, but still chasing dreams. The comments beneath it were ruthless. Even his old bandmates chimed in with passive-aggressive sympathy. And buried among them, one stood out. "Maybe treat people better next time. The world remembers." I didn't know who wrote it, but I smiled. Not out of spite, just peace. Because I didn't have to punish him. The universe already knew how. That night I took out my suitcase, the one meant for that dream vacation. I'd already paid for the trip and I wasn't about to waste it. This time I was going alone. As I folded my clothes, the rain began to fall outside again. But instead of sadness, I felt something else, a quiet thrill. Because maybe letting go isn't the end of the story. Maybe it's just the scene where you finally start living for yourself. The flight was early. Dawn barely touched the horizon when I wheeled my suitcase through the quiet airport terminal, the scent of coffee mixed with jet fuel. A year ago, I'd imagined standing here with Jason, laughing, holding hands, excited for the same trip. Now I stood alone, and somehow it felt right. People assume healing is dramatic, a big cry, a sudden revelation. But it's not. It's slow. It's mundane. It's waking up one morning and realizing you no longer care if the person who broke you is happy or not. That realization had come weeks ago. And what filled its space wasn't anger or bitterness. It was peace. A quiet, unshakable kind of peace that didn't need validation. Still, life has a twisted sense of humor. Because just when I thought my chapter with Jason had finally closed, Karma decided to write the perfect epilogue. 2 months after that last voicemail, things had shifted beautifully. My solo trip had been exactly what I needed. I hiked, red-napped, under palm trees and let the ocean wash away years of compromise. When I came back, the office felt different, lighter, warmer, or maybe I was. I'd started seeing someone new too. Ethan, a teacher I met at a networking event, the kind of man who didn't need to be the loudest in the room to be noticed. He listened when I spoke, laughed at my sarcasm, and never once tried to dim me to feel brighter. Our relationship grew slowly, no grand gestures, no chaos, just consistency. It felt real. When I told him about the vacation that was still partly unused, he grinned. "You should go," he said. "Use it for something that makes you happy." I smiled. "How about we both go?" And that's how we ended up at the same airport a few months later, boarding passes in hand, ready for a trip that finally belonged to me. We were standing in line for check-in when a familiar voice sliced through the air. Alina. I turned. Jason. He looked nothing like the man I once loved. The shine was gone. Clothes wrinkled, eyes sunken. The guitar case replaced by a beat-up backpack. He froze when he saw Ethan beside me, fingers laced with mine. "Jason," I said calmly, "you look different." He let out a hollow laugh. "Guess life's been teaching me lessons lately." Then, after a pause, "Can we talk?" Just for a minute. Ethan glanced at me, and I nodded slightly. It was fine. Jason pulled me aside near the terminal windows. He started fast words tumbling out like he'd rehearsed them. "I know I don't deserve your time. I messed up. Maya left for some guy in LA. My music career's gone. I've been doing odd jobs. I had to move back in with my mom." He ran a hand through his hair, voice cracking. "You were right about everything. I was stupid. You tried to build a life, and I mocked you for it. I didn't see what I had until it was gone." For a fleeting second, I almost pitied him. But then I remembered every night I'd cried alone while he was out chasing inspiration. Every time he called me boring for wanting stability. "I'm sorry, Jason," I said softly, "but you can't rebuild what you burned to the ground." He stepped closer. "Please, just one more chance. Let me prove I've changed. I can't lose you again." "You already did," I replied. His gaze flicked to Ethan, then back to me. "So that's him, the replacement." I held his stare. "No, he's the upgrade." His face twisted. "Wow. Guess you moved on quick." I smiled faintly. It's easy to move on when you're not dragging guilt around. By then, a few people nearby had begun whispering, recognizing him from his old music days. He noticed and tried to salvage his pride. "You'll regret this," he muttered. "You'll see what it's like when your perfect guy gets boring, too." I tilted my head. If stability is boring, I'll take it over chaos any day. He laughed bitterly. "You're cold, Alina. Always were." "No," I said, stepping back. "I'm finally warm enough to stop setting myself on fire to keep others comfortable." And with that, I turned to Ethan, who had been watching quietly, his expression steady. "Ready?" I asked. He nodded. More than ready. As we walked toward the gate, Jason called out one last time, "You'll miss me someday." Without turning, I said I already did. Once was enough. On the plane, Ethan squeezed my hand. "You okay?" I smiled. "Better than okay." He grinned. "Good. Because you just closed that chapter like a pro." I looked out the window as the plane began to ascend. Clouds opened beneath us, soft and endless. Later at the resort, as we watched the sunset paint the ocean gold, Ethan said, "You ever think about karma?" I laughed quietly. "Sometimes. But I don't chase it anymore. I just trust it to do its job." He leaned closer. "And what's its job?" I watched the waves roll in the air, warm against my skin. To remind people like Jason, I said that losing me wasn't bad luck, it was their lesson. He smiled. "And your lesson?" "That love shouldn't feel like survival," I whispered. "It should feel like peace." The ocean shimmered endless and forgiving, and for the first time in years, I felt the same. Final narration, closing voiceover style. Kindness isn't weakness. It's quiet strength, disguised as calm, and silence isn't surrender. It's just letting karma do the talking. I used to think closure came from apology, but it doesn't. It comes